never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me, yeah. Wait, I think I'll last a bit longer. Fine, I'm not.
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. It's a Tuesday. Hopefully everybody had a good Monday. Today here on the channel, we're going to be talking college football, and more specifically, we're going to be talking about the playoffs and which four teams will make the playoffs. And this is honestly a video that I wanted to do about a month ago, but I put it off because I originally knew right away, back probably in May or early June, which four teams I thought was going to make the playoffs. And then I was like, no, I don't want to do that because that's boring and that's predictable. And as they say in the sports world, I'm just going with chalk, and nobody wants to hear that. That's what you hear every year. It's the same old, same old. So I've tried and tried and tried to think outside the box and come up with something out of the ordinary, but I just couldn't do it. So I figured since I couldn't do it, and now that it's July 26th and the season starts August 27th, so we're pretty much a month away, I figured it was time to go ahead and do it. So I'm going to give you my prediction on which four teams will make the playoffs this year. If you follow the channel, you know that last year I did think outside the box, and most people probably thought that I was crazy because I had Alabama missing the playoffs. And since the playoffs started up until last year when Clemson missed the playoffs, Clemson's pretty much the only team that's been competing with Alabama as far as playoff appearances. Alabama and Clemson are pretty much the only two teams that basically virtually go every year. So I know it came across as a surprise and a shock when I had Bama missing the playoffs last year, and I did that because I was thinking outside the box. And if you follow college football, you know there was 2 or 3 games that came down to the wire last year that Bama almost lost, including the Florida game, and Florida wasn't even any good last year. So if you follow the channel and you saw that video, you know when Bama got close to losing those games, you thought, you know, that Brandon Todd guy may end up being right. So I wanted to do that again this year, but I just couldn't do it. So my 4 playoff teams are the 4 teams that Phil Steele had as his 4 best teams in the country. It doesn't matter what order you put them in. So Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson. That's my 4 playoff teams. And I'll tell you why I couldn't think outside the box and go with something out of the ordinary. One reason is I do think Michigan, who I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if memory serves me correctly, Phil Steele had them at number 5. I do think Michigan has a chance to be a really good team, but I don't think they're good enough to beat Ohio State. If you watch Michigan, you know, back in the day, teams ran the option, whether it was the triple option, the wishbone, the T-bone, anything like that, where you pretty much just ran the ball almost every play and tried to keep the ball as long as you could and keep the opposing team on the sideline. Well, Michigan pretty much does that in the modern era. they just run it from the spread, but they pretty much just run the ball from sideline to sideline and try to keep the ball as long as they can and keep the opposing team on the sideline. But they can't throw the ball effectively at all, so there will be a game somewhere in the regular season that they will lose because they can't throw the ball. And then when they lose to Ohio State, that'll be their second loss, so Michigan's out. I think Notre Dame has a chance to be a really good team, but I think they're going to lose in week 1, and I think they're going to lose to Clemson. That's 2 losses, and so far, the playoff committee has not put a 2-loss team in the playoffs, so I don't think Notre Dame could get in, even if they do go 10-2. But we also, with Notre Dame, have no proven ground, so to speak, that Marcus Freeman can coach. I know they're all high on him. The fans love him. The administration loves him. The fans love him, and I get that. But the only game he's coached so far was their bowl game when they had a 3-touchdown lead against Oklahoma State and blew it. So I'm not saying he's going to do that every game, but when you've done that in the only game you've coached, and that's all we can go with, so we have no proof that you can win. I also think NC State can be a really good team, but there's too many people that don't watch enough college football. They only watch a certain team or a certain conference, and they really don't know who's good and who's not. They just go by the past instead of watching what's currently going on. And I think NC State can be really good. And if you follow college football, you know they were a top 15 team last year. They have a chance to be a top 10 team this year. But even if they go 11-1, if their one loss is to Clemson, because I do think Clemson will beat them, and they go 11-1, their one loss is to Clemson, there's going to be millions and millions of people that do not watch one NC State game the entire year, but they're going to see that they go 11-1. They're going to say, man, they lost to Clemson. They can't even play for their conference championship. Don't put them in. And that'll happen. Even though most people could not name you 5 players on their team, that'll happen because in the past, most years NC State is no good. They don't have a tradition. They don't have a big enough brand. If they go 11-1 and their one loss is to Clemson, they have no chance. So a lot of the teams that I think have really good teams and have a chance to be really good, I don't think are quite good enough to make the playoffs. And then you have Texas A&M, who of course everybody thinks is going to be a top 10 team. I'm not buying it. It's a month to go until the season starts, and you've got 12 quarterbacks on your roster, and you still can't find a starter. That tells me you have no quarterback. So you can forget Texas A&M. So most of the teams that are right there, I pretty much think are eliminated. So it leaves you with Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and Georgia. But I will say that one team I think has a chance to be a sleeper team this year. And I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs. I'm not saying they're going to be a top 10 team. But I do think that when the season ends, they're going to be somewhere between 10 and 15. And we're going to look and say, that team was that good. But I do think Purdue has a chance to have a really, really, really good football season. And I believe they play Penn State in week 1. So we'll find out right away how good they are. But I think Purdue has a chance to be a 9 or 10 win football team this year. Any thoughts on the 4 teams in the playoffs, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. What do you call James Bond in a bathtub? 007. And that wraps it up for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.